Calvin Castine, probably off camera, but that's fine with me. We're at the St. Mary's Parish Rectory in Champlain, New York on the last Friday in September 2003, and we're here because the parish will be taking a census coming up very shortly, and I am here with the pastor, Father J. Seymour, and Trustee. What's your title of the parish, John?
I'm a parish council member and chairman of the with your brother Sam, co-chair of the census committee.
Okay, census. We all know what a census is because just 3 years ago, in the year 2000, the nation did a census, and apparently other entities are interested in their own personal census, and this year here St. Mary's is doing one. Is this the only parish in the immediate area that might be doing a census, or there might be others going on?
It's the only one that I know of at this time, but I know that the Peru Catholic Church did one just about 2 years ago, and so I consulted with Father Vincent over at St. Augustine's, and he gave us some insights too, and maybe on how we can carry out our census. But it's something that has been ongoing, I think, throughout probably the history of our church and diocese. But the thing is that the last one that was actually done here was back in 1986, so that's quite a few years ago, so there's good reason to take up another census at this time. And you know, that's not the only reason to update the figures, but there's a number of reasons why we want to do this. So we're very grateful for you, Calvin, and for Hometown to give us this opportunity to reach out to the larger community, and not just those that come to St. Mary's and are registered as St. Mary's parishioners, but also to particularly those Catholics in this area who maybe we don't see too often, and just to get the word out to them what's going on.
I think it was, John would probably know, Father Seguin, I believe, who used to say hatched, matched, and dispatched Catholics. When they're hatched, they're baptized. When they're matched, they're married. And when they're dispatched to a funeral, they're Catholics, and you saw them 3 times. So every church, regardless of the denomination, probably has some hatched, matched, and dispatched members.
I think that's true. You know, I don't know if I would use Father Seguin's terminology to express it. I think the fact is that we have to acknowledge that there are many people who are not actively practicing their Catholic faith, but who are out there. And in many cases, I think we're dealing with very spiritual people, but perhaps they just are not in the habit or of practicing it, you know, or coming to church. But these are people too that have deep spiritual needs and who are seeking answers to questions of faith and mystery. And I think we have to acknowledge that God is working in their lives. But they also need to acknowledge too that some of those answers, we believe, are found in the sacramental life of the church. So God is at work in their lives, and we acknowledge that. But we also acknowledge that maybe some of the answers to some of these deep questions of life and of mystery, connecting with God, connecting with the divine, are found in the sacramental life of the church. And we also recognize too that our celebrations are diminished by their absence. So
yes, and the absence seems to be increasing. I know I pulled in, I'm going to confess, late recently, sort of 10:30 Mass, and I can remember pulling in late for a 10:30 Mass and not finding a place to park. And last week there was plenty of place to park. And
Or a seat in the church.
Yeah. And, I can remember back, I think 86 you said this was done?
Well, actually,
we have a book here, but I think that Father Lamedy was the one who put that book out that we're going to look at later here, I think. But Father Lamedy, I think, left here in 86. and he had 5 masses at the time. We have 3 now, and that was still the situation then. At 10:30, you'd pull in, and you'd need to find a place to park. Now, before I forget, let me ask the boundaries of the parish. Now, obviously, when I come to church here, I see people from Vermont. I see people from other communities that come here on a regular basis. You won't be going to Alberg or Rouse's Point or any other place to count our parishioners, or will you? How is that going to work?
Well, I think John might address that question later on, but basically we are concerned with Catholics and Catholics who may come to this church. But just to go back to your other question, about years ago when the church being filled up, and not finding a parking place. We have to recognize too that the nature of church too is changing in some ways, and what we're trying to do as a parish council in addressing some of that need is to reach out to some of these people. There was one author, he was a Jesuit, Thomas Sweetser. He wrote a book on Parish's Covenant, and he made a point which I think is very significant and perhaps very true. He said that the local parish, has to change its focus from in here to out there if it is to survive. And what does he mean by that? I think it's not just a question of those people who come to Mass on Sunday. I think there's a real foundation, the backbone of our church, our local church, and I believe other churches as well. But we can't keep our focus as church only on those people who come and we see their faces on Sunday. We have to reach out to the people out there and find God in these people and see what their needs are and try to address those needs if our church is to survive. So it has to be an outreach type of ministry and approach, and I think that's baptismal. We are called and we are sent. I think it's part of the nature of being Christian, of going out and finding God and bringing God out there. So it's a question of we need each other. It's not just a question of either or being in here and not out there. We have to do some outreach.
So what you're saying is you can't just pay attention to the people who are there every Sunday. And I thought of course, that famous line of preaching to the choir, and one of my favorite homilies used to be when the priest would get up there and complain to the people who were there about people not going to church on Sunday.
Right.
Why are you complaining to us? We're there.
Exactly.
Tell the people who aren't here, So.
Right. And I think that's Calvin. I think that's one of the main purposes of this census too, is to find God out there, to make some outreach, and basically to listen to some of the concerns of Catholics who are out there. And so we want to do that kind of outreach. We want to also find out what are the sacramental needs of some of these people. Are there children or even adults who are interested in baptism? Are there people who want their marriages blessed? Or what are the other sacramental needs of these people and other needs as well? We want to make it more of a listening thing in a non-threatening way, in a non-imposing way. We're not out to proselytize other religions or other faiths. We're just looking for the Catholics who are within our parish boundaries or who are already connected with us, even if they do live, in another parish or another area, and just to listen to them, and maybe this will help us in our planning to make our parish not only survive but make it more alive.
Okay, now you said we, so obviously this isn't going to be Father Jay going out door to door. It's going to be other people involved, and since we have one of the co-chairs here, we'll find out who we is. Who is this we, John?
We actually is going to be a lot of people, because this is a project that is not going to be easily accomplished unless we have support of our parish members who will go out and do this work. We started with the 9 1-1 lists that we obtained from Clinton County, as well as the voter registration lists, which we obtained from Board of Elections. And we put those two together and tried to find out house to house who lived where in the parish. And from that list, we came up with several people on each street. If it was an extra long street, like Church Street or Main Street, we tried to pick even more people out of that street to help us do this job. Then Father wrote a letter to all of these people that were selected, asking them if they would participate and do a certain portion of that street. Much like the way we did the Bishop's Fund years and years ago, when we'd all fly out of here after 10:30 Mass and go to our, make our contacts. But this is, doesn't have to all be done in one day. We want to wind it up in a couple of weeks, but this is who the we are. These are people from the parish that know the neighborhood. They're going to do people on their own street, people that they know very well. And in fact, if we are short people on that street, we're going to meet with them hopefully this Sunday after the Masses. And they will help us to tell us who else is on that street. I mean, there's a lot of, we looked at all these names, and I was here all my life, but you know that the neighborhoods are changing, and I don't know a lot of these people. I don't recognize a lot of the names. So we're going to ask the neighborhood people to say, hey, who else can we get from your street? So we look for help there as well.
Okay. We won't be hearing your, we'll be hearing your phone message on our tape here. Should we be pausing for a moment here maybe?
Okay.
Okay, the phone message has been taken care of. So, as you were saying, John, there's people that we're unfamiliar with. Obviously, there's going to be people that you don't know which faith they might call their own. So these people can expect a knock on the door, maybe, but not to be, don't get upset because we're only people are only going around looking for Catholics.
Absolutely.
And if you're not a Catholic, then
well, we just walk away.
Yeah, it's not like you're trying there to convert anybody.
Absolutely. And these census takers will have a form, which is a simple form asking questions that Father could certainly use in the business of running the parish. Information that he needs for the census, but as you say, when we knock at the door, we could say, and our census people are all going to be trained. I don't see trained, but we will discuss with them a procedure that we would like them to follow, which might be: is there any member in your household a Catholic? And if the answer is no, then maybe we have a tag on with our name, tell them who we are, and we appreciated them opening the door for us, but then we move on. And if even some Catholics, there might be a family where the wife is Catholic and the husband isn't, and maybe the husband answered the door and his wife isn't home. Well, we'll leave the application, maybe make an appointment to come back or say we'll be back in a couple of days. Or if they just don't want to talk to us, even though there is a Catholic there, we can leave them a nice little brochure that we prepared to show them when Masses are, and they could perhaps join us on special occasions like Easter and Christmas if that's all they want to do. There's no pressure here. No, I think that's what you were getting at, and we just want information to help better serve the parish, as Father alluded to a moment earlier. I did hear through the grapevine that you're only doing this because you want to get more envelopes out there, and this is not the case at all. Certainly everyone who is a member of the parish should be helping the parish financially, but that is not the point, to go out and get envelopes in everyone's hand. Far from it. And Father gave you those reasons.
Yeah, so like the form itself, again, is just basic data that would help us for registration purposes. We want to know who belongs to the parish and what others so we need information such as their name and address, perhaps phone number, what is their sacramental history? Who are the members of the household? Are they baptized? Are they not baptized? Are there other needs that you're looking for? You know, what are the needs of your family? And it's just simple questions that are not imposing. We're not prying. There may be issues that they would like to bring up. The census taker could just make a note of that. Oh, well, you know, maybe Father could get back to you. So we're not trying to, you know, pry into people's lives, but we are interested in making a friendly contact with them, and seeing and listening to them and see what are your needs. How can we better respond to them? With regard to the question of envelopes and this sort of thing, there is a question there. Do you want to receive envelopes or not? If they don't want to receive envelopes, we won't send them. But we would be interested in having their address for other mailings. They might not be interested in receiving envelopes, but they might be interested in having the Christmas schedule or the Easter schedule or when other confessions and this sort of thing, or other letters of interest that we do send out to parishioners. So
or even things that are found in the weekly bulletin that a person going to church every week is aware of.
That's right. Right. And the thing is too, like, we do have a census record. But the last one was done in 1986 with Father LaValle, who's currently Chancellor of the Diocese, and he did it. He's originally from Morris Forks, I believe, but when he was a seminarian here, I think he pretty much did the last census, and our information for some of our information is quite dated, and we have names or addresses that are incorrect. We want to clarify that. We want accurate information. This is a little back in the area of the last census. This was when Father Lamety. This booklet was put together by parishioners. I don't know if you were involved in it or not at that time, but
got my picture taken.
Yes, you did.
Pictures in there.
So Father Lamety was the pastor back then, and I think this booklet was 1981, and then Father Lamety was here in 1986, and then Father Susi came in as pastor, and maybe that was probably one of the first things that Father Susi did, was undertake that census. And but you can, just looking back at them, you can see it is somewhat dated, and you can tell even, you mentioned here, like there's a character here, some bearded character who, you know, and just looking at that, you can see, well...
Yeah, he's a handsome chap.
Very handsome, yeah, you know. So we found your picture there, Calvin, with your children were very small at that time, but
only half of them were there. That's how long ago that was.
That's right. I saw a lot of people in here that...
right, well, we have Mr. Zurlo here, too. So we also have a picture of John and his family. But again, we want accurate information.
Yes, but this book has nothing to do with what's...
No.
We're not going to be taking pictures now, but this is just to give an idea of
updating.
Updating, you know, like we're talking 20 years ago.
Yeah, well, what happens now is, this thought just came to my mind here, that somebody who hasn't been to church since you've been here suddenly dies, and the family sees you and says, you know, John is dead, we'd like to have him buried. What proof do you require that this person is a Catholic? Did they have to bring in the baptism certificate? Because this, obviously, if John died, you wouldn't...
Right.
And, you know, it's not going to happen while you're here, because that's going to be a long time from now. But
I hope so.
No.
But he knows me, that's right. I understand your point.
Look for his baptism, but somebody else out of the blue, you require any type of proof?
No, in the case of death, we usually rely on the family. You know, if the family is basically Catholic and they say they're Catholic, then we don't demand any proof of baptismal. And if the person is local, certainly, and was baptized here, we would have a record here in our books if it was baptized. But also, the problem may come in other situations. Say, for example, a situation of marriage, and or even enrolling in religious education in another parish, for example, or getting married in another parish. The priest in that church would require a baptismal certificate, and so we would need that. And sometimes, too, with regard to religious education, the local pastor is going to ask, well, is this person registered with you? or even in our own school, St. Mary's Academy, we ask the question, are you registered with St. Mary's Academy? And that's an important question, because if you're registered, the assumption is that, yes, you are registered, you are participating in the life of the church, you're contributing to the life of the church, and that would affect the tuition rate as well. Or if it's another parish in a religious education program. Some families are registered or claim they are registered here with St. Mary's, and if for good reasons they may want to enroll in another parish program, the pastor is going to write and ask, is this person a registered parishioner? In general, we would ask those people to participate in their local program, but maybe for reasons of distance or health, the person it's just better for the person to participate in another parish. Well, if we say yes, they are registered, we send a fee to that parish for the religious education of this person. So there are certain ramifications for connecting to the parish.
Yeah, financial ramifications, but that's not your main reason for this. Your reason for this is to identify your parishioners. I'm not going to put words in your mouth here, but this is what I'm understanding, and to find out what their needs are and address those needs.
Exactly.
That sound about right?
And again, to get them registered for sponsorships. I mean, how many times does someone have to be called upon or asked to sponsor a person for confirmation or for baptismal? And many parish priests demand a note from the parish priest where that sponsor is from. And the father has no record of that individual, of his parish. How can he rightly write this out? I mean, I'm sure, as he said earlier to you, he's going to trust the family and he's going to trust the individual perhaps in the final analysis. But here we're going to be more professional. It's going to be done right. He's going to know that he's a parish member.
Well, a thought occurred to me as we were talking that somebody new to town could say, yeah, I'm a Catholic, and not be.
Right.
So, but that's a matter of conscience, and
Right.
obviously anybody could move to another area and register with a parish, and you don't. It's not like you check your social security number. The new parish isn't going to wire the old parish to get the birth certificate. If somebody shows up and says they're a Catholic, you take them at their word.
I guess it's pretty much faith-based.
Yeah, I think in most cases you wouldn't question that. If a person says they're Catholic, we assume that they are Catholic, and the only time that they would need verification, like I said, would be moments such as enrolling in a school or a sacramental program, First Communion, or marriage, and then you have to verify that, usually with a baptismal certificate. Mm-hmm. But in general, if a person says they're Catholic, we assume they're Catholic, and so we wanted to help people to understand too that if you're living in a certain area, well, you have a Catholic community. And so the idea is that ideally you should want to participate in the life of that community. But again, as I was saying in the beginning too, our Catholic community is larger than the people who simply come to church. And I think it's important for us to, those people who do come to Mass on Sunday, to go out and make contact with their brothers and sisters who maybe didn't come to Mass, and see, invite them, or not, at least to listen and to recognize again that if you are Catholic, we recognize our connection with you. We recognize too that God is at work in your lives, and sometimes they have needs that we're not aware of. And maybe some people would like to come to Mass, but they can't for reasons of health. An elderly woman, for example, or an elderly gentleman, and maybe they've had a history of coming to church, but now they're living with family and alone, and we're not aware of that. We want to know that. So we can visit them. We can bring them Holy Communion, for example. We can bring them the sacraments to the home. So basically, in going out to these people, and also to better identifying those members who are registered with more accurate information, it's a better form of being church, or being what we identify ourselves as a Catholic Church. And it is a form of good liturgy, it's been said. So in other words, liturgy is not just in church. Liturgy is what you do after church as well. So it's a form of good liturgy to go out and to make contact with others outside.
Yeah, and you might, these people going out might bump into somebody who said, no, but I've always been interested, or I recently have become
That's true.
interested in
That's
becoming
true.
a Catholic. That
That's true.
is a possibility. And the other side of that coin, you could also find a fallen away Catholic who, for some reason, is angry.
Sure.
And the last thing you want is for the census taker to be involved in a confrontational situation. So what are you telling them along those lines?
Absolutely. If that occurs, we will just invite that individual to talk to Father Seymour. Father Seymour will ask if we could have an invitation, set up an appointment to their home with Father, and let Father set the record straight. And you're right, Calvin. Maybe a parishioner a good Catholic parishioner had trouble with a situation 10, 15, 20 years ago, and he stayed away from the church. But this might just spur that individual to come back to the church and be part of it. There's different administrations. There's 4 or 5 different pastors since that occurrence, perhaps.
What pastor are you accusing?
So these are all things that might happen. I mean, there are many things that might result from this census, and one of the things that I think are very important is the special needs that Father mentioned. There could be someone who's home and can't get out, and they would like communion, or would like to talk to a priest. I mean, we're gonna have an accounting of that individual. It's going to be a matter of record now. So I think it's just a win-win situation with everyone.
And what are the boundaries?
You did mention that earlier, and Father said I would answer that question. We will go into Rouse's Point, but only for the people that are registered with St. Mary's.
I'm wondering what our physical boundaries are as far as our actual parish. There has to be a line somewhere that says this is where Sacred Heart begins, this is where
Yes,
St. Joseph's begins.
I'm not going to go through all those with you now because there are so darn many boundaries. But in fact, your brother Sam was the man who knows that and listed that using the Town of Champlain map. We mapped out all the streets, and Sam was very much aware where the boundary lines were, not only of the municipalities but of the parishes. So we're using that information that he gave us. So we do have those boundary lines, and we will not go past those boundary lines to look for parishioners that belong in Rouse's Point or Shazy or someone. We're only looking for St. Mary's parishioners. But if there are parishioners registered with St. Mary's as a result of maybe having children in the school here at St. Mary's,
Well, they grew up here.
that's exactly, or maybe some teachers that are teaching in our school that live in Rouse's Point. They attend at St. Mary's. We will visit their homes so that they are not omitted. They will get a visit as well. But no, we're not going to invade anyone else's parish. Absolutely not.
Or any other religions members either. You're not out there.
Oh,
again,
absolutely not.
again,
Father mentioned that.
Yeah, right. I just wanted, so people may not have heard that earlier. They're not there to solicit new Catholics. You're here just to service the ones that are out there.
Yeah, it's a very simple thing. Hopefully it goes very simply, and we want people to look at it in that manner. I mean,
When?
fill out a few forms. Father, why don't you?
Okay, that's a
have
good
the
question.
dates.
When we're thinking of starting on the 12th of October and running it through the 26th of October, so a specific time frame that we're dealing with. And so we'll prepare our parishioners, the ones that volunteers that will be going out, will have their preparation prior to that. And within that 2-week frame, more or less, they will be visiting areas in which they live. And so, we're very appreciative too of you, Calvin, allowing us to get this information out to the people. Just to alleviate some concerns, and again, to recognize that we're not trying to proselytize other faiths. We're not trying to, as John would say, invade or cross other parish boundaries. We're looking for Catholics, and Catholics who who feel some connection to St. Mary's Parish, or who may be interested in St. Mary's Parish.
Okay. I think I'm just about out of questions. Is this tape here for any reason?
Oh, I was going to leave that with you for another purpose, but
Another purpose, okay.
well, let's. We're having a concert, a Christian jazz concert on the 28th of Tuesday, the 28th of October, I believe. And Michael Lewis, who's a well-known jazz musician, will be coming back to our area for that concert. So I was going to leave that with you and see if you could do something with it.
Okay.
So.
He was here a year ago, by the
Yes.
way, Calvin, and was very well received. So Father thought he should be back.
Okay. Anything else on the census that we haven't covered that you
Well,
thought I would ask and I didn't ask? And
No, I think we're pretty well set there. We have the dates, October 12th to 26th. So if people see individuals doing the streets in this time frame, maybe going out in pairs, maybe individuals are in pairs, they should have a little name tag, just simple name tag, saying St. Mary's Parish and their name. We're not out, they're Catholics, and we're just looking for our neighbors.
And I might add, Calvin, that if some of your viewers, in looking at this tape, want to volunteer as a census taker, and they didn't receive a letter from us. Maybe they were missed. Maybe they weren't on the street list that we had because some of the areas were incomplete. Gee whiz! Call Father, call the rectory, contact me. We'd love to have you sign up. We'd love all the help we can get. This is going to be a big project.
And how big an area, how many homes are you looking for roughly per volunteer?
Hopefully not many. Hopefully no more than 10. That would be a nice number. In some cases, we might have to have more than that if we don't have the volunteers. But we're looking for about 10 or so. We have 100 volunteers selected at this point, Father?
Well, we sent out 130 letters, but I don't know how many of that number will respond, so that's fine. Yeah.
100 volunteers selected. Now that's
Not selected,
Right.
pinpointed to get a letter.
Yeah.
Pinpointed to get a letter. Now that's why I'm saying if someone doesn't get the letter, please volunteer. We
Right.
could use all the help we can get.
right. So you've drafted 100 volunteers already.
Well,
Yeah.
we invited them.
We invited, right? We invited. We haven't heard from them yet. We're
Few.
still in the infancy portion of this.
And, if you didn't get a letter, Kevin will send one to you also, all right?
My wife got one.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
She said, I'm
Yes.
not doing that.
We didn't select you, Calvin, because we know you're so busy and you wouldn't
people-
have time.
And I have a record of getting the door slammed in my face, so good choice. All right.
Thank you.
Father
Thank
J.
you very
Seymour
much.
and John Zurlo. And,
Thanks so much, Calvin.
All right.